The man whose shadow was a bear. The first time someone noticed it, they laughed. It happened on a warm Thursday evening in late September. The sun hung low over the parking lot of the small office complex in suburban Ohio, casting long shadows that stretched like spilled ink across the asphalt. Employees filtered out in clusters, car keys jingling, conversations drifting. Daniel Harper walked alone, and behind him, something massive followed. "Yo, Dan," he turned. Marcus from accounting jogged up, squinting toward the ground. "What's with the lighting out here?" Marcus said, chuckling. "Why does your shadow look like that?" Daniel glanced down. His body stood average, 6 feet tall. Lean, slightly hunched from too many hours at a desk, but his shadow, it was broader. Shoulders curved outward unnaturally. The upper shape rose higher than his own head, forming 2 rounded points at the top, like ears. Daniel frowned. The angle of the sun was strange, maybe hitting the building at a weird reflection. "Bad pavement," he muttered. "Distorted." Marcus laughed again. "Looks like you got a bear walking behind you." Daniel forced a smile. When he looked again, the shape seemed normal, mostly. That night, Daniel couldn't stop thinking about it. He lived alone in a quiet rental house near the edge of town, close enough to the woods that deer occasionally crossed his yard. The kind of neighborhood where porch lights flicked on automatically and everyone waved but rarely talked. He parked in his driveway just as the last orange smear of sunset disappeared. The porch light clicked on. He stepped out of his car, and froze. His shadow stretched across the garage door. It was enormous, bulky, rounded, the head distinctly wrong. Daniel stepped forward slowly. The shadow followed, but it seemed delayed. Just a fraction of a second slower than his movement. His heart began to pound. He lifted his right hand. The shadow lifted its paw, not hand, paw. The silhouette widened, claws faintly suggested in the splayed tips. Daniel jerked his hand back. The shadow snapped into alignment instantly, shrinking, smoothing, becoming human again. He stood there in the driveway for a long time before going inside. Over the next few days, he avoided looking at the ground. He told himself it was stress. Lack of sleep. Visual distortion. Pareidolia, the brain finding patterns where none exist. But other people began noticing. At a gas station, a woman filling her SUV glanced down and stiffened. "That's weird," she murmured. Daniel followed her gaze. Under the fluorescent canopy lights, his shadow pooled beneath him like a black stain. Too large, too heavy. When he shifted his weight, the shadow didn't shift quite right. It swayed, as if adjusting its stance. The woman got back into her vehicle quickly and drove away. Daniel stood alone beneath the humming lights. He felt watched, not from the street, from below. The first true incident happened 3 nights later. A storm rolled through after midnight, knocking out power across the neighborhood. Daniel woke to silence, the oppressive kind that follows when appliances die and the world stops buzzing. Moonlight spilled through his bedroom blinds. He sat up slowly. His heart was already racing. He didn't know why. Then he saw it, on the wall opposite his bed. The shadow, but he wasn't standing. He was sitting upright, and the shadow was not attached to him. It loomed against the wall, massive shoulders rising nearly to the ceiling. The head tilted slightly forward, rounded ears distinct against the pale moonlight. It was seated, like a bear observing from a distance, waiting. Daniel tried not to breathe. The shadow's chest expanded, contracted, breathing, slow, heavy. He swallowed, and his throat clicked loudly in the silence. The shadow's head turned toward him before his own did. A deep, instinctive terror flooded his body, ancient and primal, predator. He scrambled for his phone, turning on the flashlight. Light flooded the room. The wall was empty. His shadow lay small and ordinary at his side. Power returned minutes later. Daniel did not sleep again. After that night, things escalated. Streetlights flickered when he walked beneath them. Dogs barked at him, but not directly at him. At the ground near his feet, one afternoon, a golden retriever broke free from its leash in the park. It ran toward Daniel, tail wagging, and it lowered, crouched, as if preparing to pounce. Daniel stepped back sharply. The shadow remained lowered for half a breath too long before snapping upright. People were staring. He left the park immediately. He installed a security camera outside his house. He told himself it was for peace of mind. That night, he reviewed the footage. 2:13 a.m. the porch light flickered on. Daniel appeared in frame, stepping outside in his pajamas. He did not remember doing this. He stood still on the porch, the shadow cast behind him against the siding. At first glance, it looked normal, then it moved. Daniel remained perfectly still in the footage, but the shadow shifted its weight. Rolled its shoulders, its spine arched, the silhouette swelled, expanding outward until it barely resembled a man at all. It stood taller, broader, the head lifted slightly and turned toward the camera, directly at it. The footage glitched. When it stabilized, Daniel was gone from the porch. The timestamp jumped to 2:27 a.m., 16 missing minutes. He checked his bedroom. He had woken up in bed, door locked. Windows closed, but faint scratches marked the inside of his front door, for long grooves, parallel, like claws. Daniel began noticing changes in himself. His posture straightened unconsciously, his movements felt heavier. Deliberate, he startled less easily. When a coworker snapped at him during a meeting, something unfamiliar stirred in his chest. Not embarrassment, not fear, dominance. The coworker stopped mid-sentence, frowned. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Daniel hadn't realized he was smiling. The shadows grew darker, thicker. Even at noon, under direct sunlight, the outline remained massive. One evening, he stood in his living room as golden hour light spilled through the windows. He stared at the floor. The bare shape was undeniable now. Massive shoulders, rounded ears, powerful neck. He raised his arms slowly. The shadow did not. Instead, it dropped to all fours. Daniel's breath caught. The shadow began pacing along the wall, independent, silent. It moved with predatory grace, circling the room while Daniel remained frozen. Then it stopped, turned toward him, and began to rise, standing upright, taller than before. The ceiling light flickered violently. The shadow's head brushed the ceiling. Daniel felt pressure in his chest, like something expanding inside him, bones aching, spine stretching. He collapsed to his knees. The shadow loomed over him, merging closer, overlapping. He felt warmth flood his limbs, strength, a surge of clarity. The pacing stopped, the flickering ceased, the room fell still. Daniel stood up slowly. His shadow lay flat behind him, human, normal. He walked to the bathroom mirror. His reflection looked the same, mostly, but his eyes seemed darker, more focused, alive in a way they hadn't been before. The next morning, something was different. The shadow was gone, not smaller, not distorted, gone. Under the bright sun, Daniel stood without one. He stepped left. Nothing followed. A cold unease crept over him. People noticed. A woman across the street squinted. "Is that?" A child pointed. "Mom, why doesn't he have a shadow?" Daniel looked down at his feet, bare concrete, no darkness, no outline. He felt light, strangely light, and powerful. As he walked down the sidewalk, people instinctively stepped aside. He hadn't realized how close he had gotten to them, how silent his footsteps were. A car alarm went off suddenly as he passed. Somewhere nearby, a dog began to whimper, not bark, whimper. Daniel paused at the end of the block. The late afternoon sun stretched long behind him, and on the side of a brick building across the street, a massive silhouette appeared. Not attached to him, standing independently, watching. It shifted its weight, rolled its shoulders, then slowly turned its head toward the crowd of pedestrians. Daniel felt something stir inside him, not fear, recognition. The shadow no longer needed him. Or perhaps, it never had. Across the street, the bear-shaped darkness lowered slightly, as if preparing to move. Daniel did not run. He did not call for help. He simply watched as the shape grew taller against the brick wall, larger, broader, until it nearly reached the rooftop. And as people began to scream and scatter, Daniel realized something chilling. The shadow wasn't detaching from him. It was multiplying. Because beneath each fleeing person, their shadows were stretching, thickening, rounding at the edges, becoming heavier, more animal. Daniel stepped forward slowly, and for the first time since this began, he smiled. "Tell me, if you're standing in the light right now, is your shadow still shaped like you?" Like and subscribe for more creepy stories and suspenseful horror. Like and subscribe for more creepy stories and suspenseful horror.